Hello and welcome to our next Student Network video. Today I am at Sight&Sound Technology at an assessment centre talking to Caroline all about DSA assessments. So Caroline, can you tell us a little bit more about who Sight&Sound are?
Sure. Sight&Sound are a specialist supplier of assistive technology in the UK and Ireland. We are a supplier into the disabled students' allowances, access to work, and we are a special supplier to those who are blind and visually impaired. And this year we're very fortunate to be celebrating our 40th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yes, we're very excited.
Okay, so a little bit more about the DSA process then.
Okay.
So when should students apply?
As soon as they can. Students can apply if they have a mental health condition, a long-term illness or any sort of disability. But if they know that they have a place at university, then we advise that they do it as quickly as they possibly can, because the process does take a little while.
And is that mainly done online initially?
Yes, absolutely. They can, if they're already at university, they can go and get the help from their disability services department. But we would advise that they do it at the time when they're applying with student finance. It just makes much more sense.
Excellent. So are the universities involved at all within the application process?
It depends on the actual university the student's going to. I would recommend, or we would recommend, that you speak to if you have a place or you know where you're wanting to study, then you go and speak to them directly, because they might have support in place that can help complement your DSA support as well. But they may not actually help with the process, if you know what I mean, if they haven't actually gone yet.
Okay. So is it required to come to an assessment centre such as this one today?
Yes, it is.
Okay, there's no other options for assessment?
No, you have to go to an assessment centre to get assessed. If you're a Student Finance England funded student, they will direct you to a particular website on dsaquag.org.uk, and there's a postcode finder in there, so you pop your postcode in and it will give you an assessment centre that's close to your home or where you're studying.
Okay. So what actually happens at the assessment centre? What's kind of involved in the assessment itself?
Well, you go for an appointment that lasts about 2 hours, and you end up just having a chat with the assessor. They speak about where you're going to study, what you're studying, and obviously your condition. They have should have a lovely bunch of equipment that you can test and demonstrate, and then you can select the things that are most appropriate for the way that you study and your condition.
Okay. So how should students prepare for their assessment? Is there anything that they should bring perhaps on the day?
Thinking of students with a visual impairment particularly, if they're already using equipment, using software or hardware, and they're already quite comfortable using that, then they should absolutely tell their assessor, and they should be able to get them the most up-to-date versions through the DSA. But I would absolutely recommend that they do research and come prepared, do homework, because the more that they know, the more comfortable they'll be when they get there. It won't be so overwhelming when they have to discuss sometimes quite personal things with their assessor.
Excellent. Okay, and what happens after the assessment? How do the results come through, and what will they actually say?
Okay, they'll receive a letter of recommendation called the Disabled Students Allowance 2, so DSA 2 form. And what that will have is information about the suppliers of their specialist equipment, of their NMH provision, which is usually training, one-to-one support, and everything else besides. So it gives you contact details, it gives you information about how much the equipment should cost and things like that. But the DSA 2 is very important because you need that to go, it's a kind of proof of eligibility for your supplier, you see. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So is there much ongoing support and help with setup initially?
Yes, so not necessarily from the assessment centre that you go to, but from your supplier, absolutely. Once you get your equipment, you have full technical support for the duration of your course. So you have warranty, insurance and technical support that covers all of the equipment should anything go wrong. If your condition changes or if something changes with regard to your requirements, you can go back to your assessment centre and they can do a top-up assessment, and that then gets transferred back to your funding body, and then it would filter down through to your supplier again.
Okay, so what are some of the support that is available for DSA funding?
Okay, so you get specialist equipment that can come in the form of a laptop with software and associated hardware depending on your condition. For students with a visual impairment, you can have lots of different devices, so you can have braille displays or magnifiers. Again, it just does depend on the condition. Also, you get one-to-one support. There's a plethora of one-to-one support that you can get, but again, depending on the condition, and as long as there's a disability-related justification for it, your assessor will make sure that you get what you're requiring. Okay, and then if you are in receipt of hardware and software, then you will get one-to-one assistive technology training, which is super important. And it should always be taken up. I can't wave my flag more about the training. It's really important. But yes, there's lots of things that they can get, but it just really depends on the condition.
And that training is included within the process and fully funded?
Absolutely, absolutely. And yes, training is the most important part. You can be given all the software and hardware in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, then it's kind of redundant.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So what are some of the devices that students find most beneficial?
There's many devices out there. I know that we at Sight&Sound supply a lot of handheld devices like the Ruby range, which are used quite a lot by students. Again, I could be here for a while telling you about all the different bits of equipment that are out there. If there is a disability-related reason for the student to use it, and it will help mitigate an impact on their study, then it should be recommended, and it will be funded by the funding body. But again, it's all about the condition.
Okay. And is it just equipment and support directly related to the course and the studying, or is it can you get like navigation tools, for example?
Yes, you can. Well, we have a particular product that's quite new called the Sunu Band, and it's an obstacle detection system with a vibration alert that a person would wear on their wrist. So if you're visually impaired, it's like almost like you would have a cane. It works like that.
Oh, amazing.
I know, it's quite exciting.
Yes. Is there any recommendations you have for making sure that the devices are compatible with the university systems?
Well, it's from a supplier point of view. We really tend to go with what the student tells us. So when they come to us, for example, the quote may have been generated on a third-party system, and we just then have a list of equipment that we're to supply. If it turns out that that's not correct or the right thing for the student, they can make changes to it at the point of order. So if there's a slight cost differential, then the student sometimes pays it. So for example, if they have a PC and they want to change it to a Mac, then they can upgrade based on what they've already been recommended. But in terms of whether it fits into or integrates into the university systems, it really depends. It really depends. But yes, we can make changes. We can make changes to anything, really, as long as the assessor is happy, because the assessor is making these recommendations for a reason. And if you change from one operating system to another, some of the software changes as well, so it may not have the same features. So we have to be careful about that.
So it's important to communicate both with yourselves, with the assessor, and also with universities to find out what's the best solution all round.
Yeah, I sometimes feel for the students because they end up having to have speak to lots and lots of people to get all the information they need, but it's important that we get it right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Worth it at the end.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so time for some myth busting now. How much do students actually have to pay themselves for the
Okay, for Student Finance England students, they pay a £200 contribution to the laptop or desktop, so basically for the computer if they are recommended one.
Okay. And you said that they have the option to upgrade as well if they'd like a different device than recommended.
Absolutely. If they have been recommended a standard PC, then they can change it to a Mac. Normally, if they've been given a Mac, it would be quite unusual because they're not often funded. So they can, but yes, likewise, they can change it to a PC. Not a problem.
Right, okay. And how long does the process take overall?
So the assessment process takes about 2 weeks. Then the approval process from Student Finance England takes about 2 to 3 weeks. So from the start of the application process, say when you have to complete your initial application online to when you get your equipment and training, I would say about 14 weeks at the maximum.
Okay, and it's definitely recommended to start as early as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. The sooner you can get it in, the better, so that you can get your equipment before the start of term, which is the dream.
Perfect. Okay. Do you get to keep the equipment after university?
Yes, you do. It's theirs. So that's why if they want to make changes to the equipment, then they can, and then it's suitable for them moving into the world of work, which is perfect.
Okay. And how much funding roughly can you get?
Okay. So for full-time students, they get £5,684 for their specialist equipment.
Mm-hmm.
They get £22,600 for their NMH support, non-medical helper support, and they get £1,800 for their general allowance, which covers the assessment centre fee and printing costs. So what I would say is, though, that students with visual impairment tend to bust that budget sometimes. So if the equipment if it comes to more than £5,684 and there's still some money left in the general allowance, then they can apply to use that to make up the shortfall, and if not, then they can approach their institution directly and then they can pay the difference. But it's just something to bear in mind, and make sure when you're speaking to, particularly if you're getting like a laptop with JAWS and a braille display and anything else besides, that you kind of are aware of that money, because the assessor will know, but sometimes they're so busy getting the quotes they maybe don't look at the bottom line. But yeah, it's definitely something to bear in mind.
So unfortunately DSA is not available for apprentices and like shorter term or internship placements.
Right.
But it is important to say that Sight&Sound, you can help with access to work as well, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Supply equipment
We
for that.
supply lots of people with their access to work requirements. Something to bear in mind for our students who we already support is that when they do go into the world of work, just come to us if they have any questions, and then we'll be able to help. It's not a problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that helped, and if you have any further questions, by all means get in touch with us and we can pass them on to Caroline for some more information. Thank you, and see you soon.